Hi there, welcome to our What's What meetup. Discussion topic today is healthy fats. This is part 2 of 4 of our nutrition series. Last week was carbohydrates, and next week will be protein. So hopefully you're able to hop on that discussion as well. My name is Desiree Martin. I am the program manager at the US Bancorp Center in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Super excited to be able to offer this opportunity to you. We have lots of other videos on our YouTube channel as well, so hopefully you're able to check those out. So like I said, our topic today is healthy fats, a really popular topic to discuss just because a lot of people are unsure, is this good for me? Is this bad for me? When they look at a nutrition label. So just thinking to yourself, when you do see that on a nutrition label, do you automatically think it's bad? Do you know what saturated or trans fats are? Things like that. And hopefully I'll be able to answer a lot of those questions for you today. Even being able to identify food sources of the unhealthy and healthy fats and just how to make simple swaps. So hopefully you're able to take that away. Before we dive in though, I do want to show you kind of what's new with our nutrition labels, and I believe it started in 2020. Definitely a resource that you can take a look at, the FDA, so US Food and Drug Administration. They have a really cool part of their website that's an interactive nutrition foods label. There's also a part that describes the new parts to the label, but obviously our discussion here is fats, so I won't dive into all the other things, but a few new things. They made this a lot larger. They added potassium on there, and then the added sugars piece as well. But specifically up here, what's really cool about this label or interactive label is exactly what it says. It's interactive. So if you want to take a look at these, you can actually click on it and it'll tell you what it is, where it's found, what it does, and some other facts. It'll describe the saturated and trans. I believe it'll also introduce other things if it's indicated, and we'll go over that in a little bit. You can also download all this stuff, but majority of the fats piece we will go over today. So I just wanted to show you that, and I'll provide that resource to you. It's just the FDA website. So you can use that and think about what that nutrition label looks like as we go through our presentation here. All right, so as we dive in here, just to test your knowledge, fat is an unhealthy part of the diet and should be limited as much as possible. Obviously, you can't answer, but just thinking to yourself, true or false to this? And the answer is false. So fat is an important nutrient that we all need for good health. Calories or energy come from 3 different nutrients: carbs, protein, and fat, which is an awesome thing because that's what our nutrition series is going to be talking about. So hopefully you get to view all of those and get information on those. Alcohol also contains those calories, but it's not considered a nutrient. So also thinking of that. But for good health, we need a balance of all 3. So today's seminar, our What's What meetup, will focus on one of those 3, which is fat. So fat plays many important roles. In addition to supplying energy, also known as calories, they add flavor to our food, so that palatability. They help you feel full, and it's essential for growth and brain development, delivers fat-soluble vitamins, cushions the vital organs, and just kind of back up there, the fat-soluble vitamins, I guess I can kind of explain that a little bit. That would be things like vitamin A, D, and E, and K. And there's a little bit to the body through the foods containing fat. And then again, cushioning those vital organs, and providing essential fatty acids. That's where the body cannot make, which are needed for metabolism and cell function. Again, don't fear the fat, right? So type matters. The 4 types of fat we'll kind of go over here. So when it comes to fat, it's not just about the amount, but the type. So as long as you're not overdoing it, the type is probably even more important. But just know portion control is still important overall. And we'll mention that a little bit later. But here are the 4 types of fats in the diet, and we'll dive into these as well. We got monosaturated, polysaturated, saturated, and trans. As you saw on the nutrition label earlier, saturated and trans is kind of what you noticed most you saw on the nutrition label. So most fats are a combination of these different types, but are classified by the type that is most abundant. So whatever food that was on that nutrition label, for example, it might have had all 4 of these, but you know, trans and saturated were maybe, or like saturated would show up, saturated maybe what's most abundant. So for example, you know, olive oil, it contains mono, poly, and saturated fat, but it's mostly monosaturated. So definitely important to know that when you're looking at the label. And then let's start to talk about those more specifically. So let's talk about the one that you should probably choose more often. So this is monosaturated fats. They're a type of heart-healthy fat that may help lower bad cholesterol. They are liquid at room temperature, but then it turns solid when chilled. So these are a few examples of foods that are rich in monosaturated fats. So many of you know olive oil. There's also canola and peanut oil. Avocados are a healthy fat, monosaturated. Olives, and then most nuts. So examples would be almonds, cashews, hazelnuts, peanuts, pistachios, and then macadamia nuts. Another heart-healthy fat to help lower cholesterol levels would be polysaturated. So they're liquid at room temperature. And then these are provide essential fatty acids, so omega-3 and omega-6. So these are sources such as many oils, sunflower, corn, cottonseed, soybean, fatty fish, many nuts and seeds, so walnuts, Brazil nuts, pine nuts, chia, and flax seeds. So like I said, these polysaturated fats provide essential fatty acids such as omega-3 and omega-6. These are the fats that the body needs for good health, but cannot make on its own. So it's good to get these nutrients and sources elsewhere. So fish, excuse me, fish, especially fatty fish, are rich in omega-3 fats and are a great protein source as well. So omega-3s can come from other sources too. So some vegetable oils, walnuts, and then ground flaxseed, but fish are an especially good choice. Types of fish that are rich in omega-3s would be tuna, trout, herring, sardines, and salmon. And then national guidelines recommend eating fish at least twice per week. Choose baked or broiled fish instead of breaded or fried. Many of you may know that already. And just a quick note, you know, pregnant and nursing women women who may become pregnant and young children should avoid shark, king mackerel, tilefish, marlin, swordfish, orange ruffly, and big eye tuna due to the high levels of mercury. So being careful of those. If you do have them having some in small amounts, or talking with your physician beforehand. So I talked about the things to have, or the fats to have more of, and these are a few things to kind of have less of. So saturated fats are solid at room temperature and have been shown to increase the bad cholesterol levels. So you'll see some examples here, some sources. The tropical oils, so coconut, palm kernel, butter, real butter, fatty meats, bacon, sausage, poultry skin, things like that. And then whole and 2% regular cheeses. And the dietary guidelines do recommend eliminating these specifically saturated fat by replacing it with sources of mono and polysaturated fats to promote heart health and healthy cholesterol levels. And I do just want to pull into, like, a lot of people are probably wondering, okay, I heard a lot of things about coconut oil. How come I'm not seeing that on here? And a lot of people have been questioning it or been seeing it on the news more, and it's becoming a healthier option. However, it is a saturated fat, and the science shows a negative connection between saturated fats and heart health, like we just said. So for this reason, coconut oil and other sources of saturated fat should be replaced with healthier fats. If you want more information on that, you can also take a look at American Heart Association, and there will be resources at the end of this as well. But knowing that, you know, coconut oil has been used as an alternative for some things because people think it's healthy, doesn't necessarily mean it is. It is really, really high in saturated fat. So maybe just stick to using it to moisturize the skin or the hair. All right, so the second and last fat to kind of have less of would be trans fat, and they're found naturally in some foods, but most concerning ones are formed during hydrogenation, a process that turns a liquid oil into a more solid and spreadable form. So looking here, they are found in foods made with partially hydrogenated oils, so some stick margarines, shortenings, baked goods. Because they raised the LDL, the bad cholesterol, they lowered the HDL, the good cholesterol, and increased the risk of heart disease. It's best to limit trans fats as much as possible. Most partially hydrogenated oils are no longer allowed in food products due to the FDA rules. So that's, again, another resource you can look at, looking back at the FDA. You could probably click on that trans fat option. It'll probably describe that for you. And then another kind of note here, a lot of people are maybe wondering, like, okay, well, how much fat is recommended then? Just knowing that the dietary guidelines recommend less than 10% of calories from saturated fat, less than 22 grams per day for a person eating 2,000 calories, for example, and then keeping trans fat as low as possible. A good resource for this, balance is key among all food groups. And like I said, portion sizes are still important, but going to choosemyplate.gov is a great resource just to kind of plan and get more information on meal planning. So you take a look at that as well. So kind of speaking of portion sizes, let's keep an eye on those. Remember, the healthy fats are important, but calories in any kind of fat definitely add up fast. So make sure you don't overdo it. Here are kind of a few examples of what to include as far as when you are doing fats. Cooking with oils in place of solids, use olive oil and vinegar as a salad dressing. Add avocados to salads and sandwiches. Have a small portion of nuts or seeds as a snack. Again, choose fish at least twice a week, and then enjoy olives on a salad or sandwich. So you can support, healthy fats for a healthy heart just by focusing on replacing those unhealthy saturated and trans fat with these healthy unsaturated fats instead. So remember that you're not overdoing it. Here are more examples of kind of the portion size they were talking about earlier. So you could do 1 tablespoon of peanut butter or mayo. So that's about the size of your thumb, that top left picture there. I know a lot of times people they say like a tablespoon, they take a heaping pull out of the jar and they say that's a tablespoon, but you actually have to kind of level it off. Or you could use this thumb picture as well. Another example, 1 teaspoon, so buttery spreads, is about the size of a thumb tip. 1 handful is about a half a cup of some foods or a small serving of nuts. An open palm is about 2-3 ounces of, an example could be meat of poultry, use this. 2 handfuls is about 1 ounce. Example could be certain snack foods or servings of nuts as well here. So these are great examples for serving sizes. And kind of everything we've already talked about. Some of it you may have already known, some you didn't know of. Maybe the nutrition label kind of really sparked your interest and you want to learn even more about that. That's a great resource. And again, I'll provide more resources as well. But, we talked about all 4 types. We did talk about replacing that unhealthy, some food swaps, and then talking about healthy fish. But everything that we did talk about, maybe there's other ideas that you've heard of and you'd like to reach out to us and share. We can kind of have a good open discussion with that. And just remember, these are just a few ideas and possible small steps if you don't know too much about fat. But although some of this isn't new, again, we'd love to hear some more ideas if you prefer to send us some. We do also have a handout, and if you would like that, please reach out to us. Our email will be in the description of the video. So what small steps will you do next based on everything we said? Like I said, maybe it's going to be reading those food labels, looking more at trans fats and saturated fats, making sure that those aren't that high in percentages when you do choose a piece, select food, and making sure you're finding those healthy swaps. Other than that, that kind of concludes our Healthy Fats presentation. Hopefully this was helpful in some way, and I really appreciate you guys attending. Open to feedback and any other opinions on these presentations. And again, next week is going to be our proteins discussion. So hopefully you're able to tune in. All right, thank you. Have a great day.